Hello and welcome back to El Pozo, the Primera RFEF show, the show where we take you to the Spanish third tier to tell you about all the fantastic games that have been played at the weekend. Liam, I'm delighted to be joined in your company once again. I am in once more unfamiliar surroundings, but you are safely at home in Manchester, aren't you?
I am for the moment, yes. Our second recording from a German hotel room.
Yes, becoming a lot more common. Yes, fingers crossed. But like I said, we always persevere to make sure that we get you the latest from Primera Federación, including one game that happened last week. It was a catch-up match from Jornada 13, I think it was originally. It was when Atlético Madrileño were supposed to play against Marbella. They played that game at the Bernus Football Centre last Wednesday, just after we recorded, obviously. And obviously not the result we wanted to see, was it, Liam?
No, 95th minute winner. We quite like last minute winners, don't we? As long as Filiales don't score them. And that win took Atletico Madrid to the top of Grupo Dos, where they still are after this weekend's results. Spoiler alert.
Yes, exactly. It's not what we wanted to see. And we thought a dapper-dressed David Movia would maybe do a bit more against Fernando Torres, but unfortunately it was a bit of a smash and grab. Did you think it was offside, Liam? Just maybe to get a bit of a summary. I thought he was onside, to be fair, as much as I wanted it to be offside.
Yeah, no, I think it was the right call, unfortunately. I was disappointed by the game, really. I thought it could have been a decent game, and it wasn't a classic, was it, really? And then it ended up being the kind of result we really don't want. So, but I can't complain about that win. I think it was onside. I think it was the right call. So, fair play to them for keeping going to the end, and as I say, a big win for them.
Absolutely. Some more football happening tonight. It is the Copa del Rey is back in action, and two massive games underway this evening as we record. One of them is Deportivo Guadalajara hosting Barcelona at the Pedro Escartin. I'm not going to reveal the scores because I want to surprise myself, Liam, more than anything after this podcast to see what has happened. And also at the moment, I think it's El Dense hosting Real Sociedad at Nuevo Pepico Amat. So again, two massive games there. We've also got some other massive games later this week, Liam, haven't we? One that you may be at.
Yeah, we've got Talavera against Real Madrid tomorrow night. I noticed that Real Sociedad line they've gone pretty strong. Real Sociedad, obviously, they've just parted company with their coach. Clearly, the new incumbent, albeit possibly a temporary head coach, doesn't want to risk anything. Doesn't want to start his short reign with a cup set. And both Talavera and Guadalajara have done very well. I think financially out of these games, haven't they? This was the main draw of getting them. I don't think either of them have particularly realistic ambitions of knocking out those two sides, but they will see themselves very well compensated for those ties in terms of financially be able to build hopefully from what they make. I suppose that was the root of the Mayor Orense throwing his toys out the pram and saying he was a little bit unhappy that his city's team only got Athletic Club, at which point an awful lot of Atletico fans took to social media and pointed out that they drink more, they spend more. So actually, he should be really happy, as opposed to Barcelona and Real Madrid, where they'll turn up and sip a nice cup of chai latte or something, and then go to the game and not buy 10 bottles of whatever Mao or whatever they sell in Orense, probably all Estrella Galicia, wouldn't it? I think he might regret making that comment. In fact, I suspect he already has. Yeah, the game you mentioned, Real Murcia against Real Betis. I think it's a sellout, which is tremendous. I think part of that, Nick, was they put some really sensible ticket prices in, didn't they? A lot of people were saying, 40 or 50 euros seems fine, and they charged less than that. And obviously, Real Murcia holds over 30,000 people in their economia, and I think it's sold out. So, and I'm very fortunate, thanks to Russ Pierce, who managed to secure a ticket for me. I'm going. So, yeah, it should be great. And you might get an El Partido / El Pozo in directo sometime after that from us if we get around to it.
Yeah, there's a great line there, isn't it? Between is it El Pozo, is it El Partido? We don't know, but it'll always be appreciated wherever it lands. And I'm sure it'll be absolutely brilliant to hear yourself and Russ, who obviously are both contributors to En Directos, reporting from what should be an absolutely fantastic game. Will the might of Manuel Pellegrini be able to overcome Colunga Ball? We do not know. We'll soon find out, though. It's the main thing. Should we start talking about some football from the weekend, Liam? Because it was yourself who got the Grupo Uno fixtures, starting with Tenerife visiting Real Industrial.
Yeah, I think Tenerife were very happy with their last week's work. They'd be disappointed they gave up a 2-goal lead in Lugo the weekend before last. But, 2 tough away days, one in Galicia, one in Asturias. I know you can fly from the Canaries to the mainland, but still, those are fairly long old journeys up to the north of Spain. There are airports up there, of course, but, still a big journey. And tough opponents, Lugo unbeaten at home, of course. And Real Industrial having a great season. So they pick up 4 points out of 6. From those 2 away days, pretty good, really. And then really after they went ahead in this one, I don't know what you thought, Nick. I think Enrique Gallego gave them the lead in the first 20 minutes, didn't he? And I thought after that, to be fair, Real Industrial didn't really threaten very often, did they?
No, and I think, to be fair, that was a lot to do with how Tenerife controlled the game, to be honest. And I think that's maybe been one of the things that, it's hard to criticise them when they are, out in front by so many points. And, I've got a, goal scored, I think it's 30 now. So, they've clearly got a winning formula. But I think the thing that they haven't managed to grasp a hold of yet or master the art of is controlling games and keeping possession and actually, being a cut above their opposition so far this season at times in respect to that. So I think in this game, to do it against Dani Vidal's Real Aviles as well, away from home, is an impressive feat as well. So, yeah, I was, and again, I was quite happy to see, the result from this in terms of, this wasn't routine, so say, Liam, as we've usually seen it from Tenerife. This was a lot more to this match from Cervera's side.
Yeah, I agree. I thought they played well. I totally agree that they did keep the ball better. They obviously had learned already perhaps their lesson from the previous weekend when they threw away 2-goal lead, as I said earlier. I mean, I thought really only really had one chance. Raul Rubio bore down on goal, one-on-one with Dani Martin, made a good save, low down to his left. And that was really all that he needed to do in the whole game. And, 5-point lead, you can't argue with that, can you really? Conversely, I suppose Real Aviles Industrial will be a little bit disappointed. They've lost 3 of the last 4. Probably could do with the Christmas break, I reckon. Not a massive squad, and they've worked really, really hard in this first 16 or 17 games of the season. So I'm sure they'll be looking forward to having a couple of weeks off. But yeah, it's still a brilliant season overall. I mean, they really are surpassing our expectations, aren't they?
Yeah, especially for Real Aviles. I think I think we maybe both had them sort of edging towards the relegation zone, maybe just surviving. Given and we've spoken about it many times, the situation in which Dani Vidal came in, but he's really got them playing. I thought they really missed Kevin Batista in this game too. He was a bit of a big miss in that midfield. And again, when you've got sides of these size. And when you've got smaller squads, a core of players which you can rely on, when you lose one of them, you can really, really tell. And I think we've seen that with the likes of Baracaldo recently as well, losing, Sam Bartolome. So, but I think they'll take it, where they are in the league. I think at the end of the day, they'll be looking to secure points for survival still. And they're pretty much halfway there now. So, yes. And Tenerife, top at Christmas, we're getting sort of a... Cultural Leonessa situation again, isn't it? Where we've had one team lead all the way through the league. It'll be interesting to see whether Tenerife can maybe avoid what Leonessa did and keep up the form in the second half of the season rather than limp over the line come the end of May. So shall we stay in the northwest of Spain, Liam? Because you picked Racing Ferrol against Unionistas next.
Yeah, I did. Racing Ferrol 2, Unionistas 1. This is the second time that the visitors have gone to Galicia in the last fortnight and conceded a late winner. You might remember that crazy game a couple of weekends ago in Orense that they were winning 3-2 and eventually lost 4-3 and conceded a win in about 100 and something minute, 103rd, 104th. It was some ridiculous thing like this. This wasn't quite as late. And in fact, they probably thought they were going to get a point from this one. For much of this game, having fallen behind early on-ish. What a ball. They call it a caramelo in Spain, don't they? Like a sweet, literally. Cross from Alvaro Juan to the far post. Alvaro Jimenez, the experienced centre forward, he couldn't really miss. He was probably a foot out at the far post, just had to help it over the line with his head. And then they equalised Unionistas early in the second half, didn't they? And I like this one because it was another Alvaro Gomez this time. It was the Unionistas captain, and this cross was a really decent one as well, and headed home by Salamanca born and bred midfielder Jose de Bustos. And then Jimenez missed a penalty, and then I suppose they probably thought, that's it. That was, I think, 20 minutes ago we missed that, and we got to the 88th minute, and it was still 1-1. And they're thinking, yeah, we avoided what happened to us in Orense a couple of weekends ago, and then disaster strikes for the poor substitutes, isn't it?
Yes, it was. It was a nightmare moment for Luis Roldan. He only came on, as you said, in sort of like the last moments, but he got the back pass all wrong for this one. Real heads in hand moment. And the initial effort was actually saved, but Pascu managed to smash home the rebound. And again, it really helps Racing Club de Ferrol sort of stay in the hunt, I suppose we're going to be using the word, because they are up there, sort of like the nearest challengers to Tenerife and along with Celta Fortuna as well. So, again, we've spoken at length about, Pablo Lopez and his side maybe being a bit underwhelming this season, but at the end of the day, they are getting the results in places. They're especially making Malata a difficult place to go to. And they are still within a shout of, I think at some point they're going to maybe recognise that actually we probably need to prepare ourselves for a playoff campaign because, Tenerife are, getting a big lead and we are still continuing to struggle. So I think they'll take this. It's obviously very disappointing for Unionistas, Liam, because this is, a couple of games in a row now where, Mario Simon had really turned a corner for them. And I'm not saying he's doing a bad job by any stretch of the imagination, but there's just some of these results where they've conceded late goals that have turned wins into draws into losses. And, we just don't want them to be thinking come the end of the season, oh, what could have been if we had just held out at Racing Ferrol, or we just held out against Orense. It's a bit of it's a slight worry for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you look at these two games, they should have had 4 points from them, shouldn't they? They were 3-2 up. It wasn't like they were drawing it against the Reds. They were 3-2 up, with, I think, something like 98 minutes on the clock, and they lost 4-3. This game, it's 1-1 or 88 minutes gone. So that's, they could have had 4 points from those two games and ended up with nothing. And you're right about the head and hands. I mean, he literally, didn't he? Poor old Roldan. He plays the ball, and as he plays his ball, he realised he's made a mistake, and before the goal's even scored, his hands gone to his head. I felt so sorry for him because, as you say, he'd only just come on. Couple minutes before, it must have been almost his first touch, and he just made a really bad call. And he must have thought he got away with it. And then Pasco, as you say, netted the rebound after a decent save, but it rebounded perfectly for him. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, 5 points behind. I think Club de Ferrol are 5 points to make up on Tenerife. But at the start of the season, they probably would have thought it was going to be tough ask to keep them in their in their headlights, basically, or keep them close enough to challenge them. So realistically, is it any worse than they thought it was going to be? And they are still in with the shout, and they'll obviously hope, as you say, for a sort of cultural Leonese style collapse in the second half of Tenerife that they can take advantage of, because they're near enough not to be completely unable to capitalise on any slip-ups. My third game was Pontevedra 2, Arenas de Guecho 0. Tell us a little about this one, Nick.
Yeah, again, an impressive result for the home side, who, we speak a lot about how Real Avilés and, Europa in Grupo Dos, for example, are, taking to, life in Primera Federación, but Pontevedra can be easily included in that. I think in this game they did get a bit of a helping hand from Arenas de Guecho, some really poor defending. It's been one of those seasons for Arenas Club, hasn't it? Their home form's been great, but their away form has just been absolutely abysmal. And it was, that poor defending from the visitors in the opening 10 minutes that saw, Miguel Suesta take up a position on the edge of the box, and everyone ignores him. The cross eventually comes in, and he just basically heads it in for completely unchallenged, didn't he?
He wasn't even the edge of the box. He was on the edge of the 6-yard box. I mean, he just kind of ambles in, and the ball goes out wide. He sort of ambles in. I can count at least 3, if not 4, Arenas Club de Guecho players who have him perfectly in their line of sight and just don't do anything. And I just thinking, where do they think the danger's coming from? There's only really one player in a decent area that can get on the end of the cross that comes in, and they just ignore him. He's just stood on his own. Now, I know he hasn't scored. I don't think he's. I think that he didn't start. I think he didn't even have a minute for the first 6 match days. But he started a lot more since then. I think he's had 9 of the last 10 games he started, and this is his first goal. So maybe they knew his goal scoring record, Nick. Maybe they just thought this guy never scores. No need to bother about him. But they know now that was a bad call because, yeah, I mean, just criminally bad defending, really. As I said, the play developed relatively quickly, but there's still plenty of time for them to react to it. Just nobody reacted. And yeah, it's indicative of the way they've been defending away from home, isn't it? In this club, they get, I think they won the last away game, having done terribly on the road before then. And this was like kind of reverting to type somewhat. Bryce Haberlender. I quite like this one, though. Not the fact he missed a penalty, because I like Pontevedra. I don't want any of their players to miss penalties. But I quite like what the keeper did here. I don't know if you saw this, Nick. It's one of those classic ones where he goes, he puts his arm up to his left and goes, go left, go to my left, go to my left. I dare you. And Bryce Haberlender goes to his right. Keeper guesses right. Obviously, he wins the kind of psychological battle, do you know what I mean? And it's not a great penalty anyway. I think if he'd smacked it hard enough, even if the keeper had guessed right, he'd score, but it wasn't a great penalty. And I was just thinking, yeah, from the keeper's point of view, that's very, very nice. But it didn't matter. It was
in it as well for Pontevedra. Just don't seem to be able to get penalties off the ground, literally and both figuratively too. So,
well, to be fair, Haberlender scored the week before for the penalty spot. I was thinking that when he missed his penalty, I was thinking, but my first thought now when I think of Pontevedra is always, is he supposed to be taking that penalty after the Danny Silva situation? He took 2 penalties he wasn't allowed to take. But I did remember that Haberlender taken the one the weekend before, so presumably he was on penalty taking duties. I'm not sure he'll be on it for much longer after this one. But yeah, it didn't matter. I thought against the club they get were poor overall. Really very little attacking threat. Alex Compar scored for the home side early in the second period. Game over. And no need to count on Danny Salmo, who was an unused sub again on the bench. And Pontevedra, Nick, as you said, yeah, Jose Dominguez. Or is it Jose Dominguez? I know it's Dominguez.
Ruben Dominguez.
Ruben Dominguez. I don't know what I think there was a Birmingham City midfielder back in the day called Jose Dominguez, and one of those names is, I mean, literally 25 years ago. For some reason, that Dominguez is still stuck in my head as a Jose, but no, he's of course Ruben. Thank you for that. And yeah, Ruben Dominguez, as we've said several times before, we didn't rate him really at the start of the season. We weren't convinced about his appointment. We couldn't understand why Iago Iglesias left Pontevedra, and there were some mutterings about lack of investment and everything. What a brilliant job he's done. They're in the top 5.
Yeah, no, that's it, like you say. And, you know, when we look at some of the clubs that have come up from Segunda Federación, again, Pontevedra, Sabadell, clubs that, you know, could quite easily, you know, with the right sort of momentum, you know, stage a bit of assault and potentially sneak into the Spanish Segunda next season. They'd be a club that are, you know, pretty well set to be up there as well in terms of, I mean, like in facilities and things like that. I don't know what the investment's like at Pontevedra. It might need a little bit more. But, you know, they'd be a very welcome addition, you know, given the size of the club, the size of the city, the where it is. So, yeah, I think the colour of the shirt, well, the beautiful shirts, beautiful Kappa shirts they've got as well. You know, they'd be a very interesting addition to get promoted. And like I say, just don't write them off. And this has got to be some of the questions that some of these teams that find themselves in the playoff picture in a minute, probably not expecting to be there. Did they gamble and go for it? And, you know, do they go and get, like, you know, for example, Pontevedra, do they go and get another striker, for example? You know, they need maybe a bit more of a consistent goal scorer. You know, you look at Mingo at Arentero, for example. You know, I'm not saying they could get him, but, you know, they need somebody like that who can score the goals for him recently. So it'd be interesting to see how things shape up in January for these clubs that are just on the periphery. And, you know, as much as Grupo Uno is maybe not exciting for the top spot that belongs to Tenerife, certainly the best of the rest position is very much up for grabs, and there's plenty of competition between, I think it's something between second and I think it's 9th, 8th, something like that. There's only a handful of points between the two of them. You could literally see a change in the playoff positions in the space of a week or two. So it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, very much so. I think Grupo Dos quite similar, but you're right. Although there's a 5-point gap at the top, beneath that, it's anybody's game, isn't it? And yeah, a bit of consistency, and that's what Pontevedra have done recently. And they're very strong at home, aren't they? So yeah, great stuff. Grupo Dos games. We started in Grupo Dos. These were your picks, weren't they? Juventud de Torremolinos 1, Marbella 1. We talk about derbies in Spain quite often. A derby in Spain is like an hour and a half between the two teams because it's such a big country. This is a proper derby, isn't it? Torremolinos to Marbella. I don't know how long that is, but 30, 40 minutes, probably not much more than that. And did you think it was about right overall 1-1? And there was a very, very late equaliser from Juventud de Torremolinos, but I felt like 1-1 was about right.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, you know, you look at these two sides that, you know, one obviously being promoted from Segunda Federación last season, one just about remaining in Primera Federación. as well. And again, at the start of the season, we'd expected these two teams to be very, very far apart, but it's very much a roles reversal. I didn't actually think loads happened in this game in terms of a spectacle, but when you look at the first half, Marbella for me were definitely the much better side in the first part of it. They just took the lead, sort of just past the half-hour mark. Rodri Rios, who again, Davide Movia just seems to be getting a bit of a tune out of him at the moment, which is something they definitely need. He smashed in underneath the bar, but it was rebounded by Jose Cabra. So again, it's not just about scoring goals for Rios; it's about being a provider or being a menace in the box. Is probably the best way I would describe it. I think the thing that did change this for maybe, ironically for the better for Torremolinos as well, they do seem to do something when they go down to 10 men, and that was the unfortunate dismissal of Edu. No intent in this for me, Liam, but when you do kick someone in the face, you probably need to maybe be sent off a little bit. So, I don't know what you thought about that one, but
it's really hard.
It's unfortunate, but...
Totally. I mean, I feel for him because the only thing I'd say is, look, he must have heard the guy was right behind him, and he kind of doesn't. He kind of turns and kicks high, and I'm sorry, it's dangerous play. It has to be a red card. I know it's completely unintentional, but as you say, you kick someone in the face, you can't really get away with that. It has to be a red, I'm afraid. But you're right. Yes, this is the first time, isn't it? Junta Torremolinos have really played well on 2 or 3 occasions this season when they've gone down 10 men, and although they weren't great the second half, you're right. I didn't think it was a great game overall, as derbies quite often aren't classic spectacles, are they? But they kept plugging away, and Marbella didn't do very much. I thought Marbella should perhaps have tried to push on and try and kill the game, but they didn't really look as if they were that bothered. I think they thought they could protect that 1-0 lead, and then they got their bottoms burnt or arses slapped, whatever you want to call it, didn't they? Right at the end, 99th minute.
Yes, 99th minute equaliser is becoming a bit of a speciality in this division this season, isn't it? And just a corner swung in from the right. Torremolinos basically flooded the box with players. Marbella couldn't clear their lines at all, and Rodri Ahuen, is that what we're going with? I think he only played 12 minutes for Primera Federación.
Let's just call him Rodri. Let's call him
Rodri. Let's not go over the full name. He's only played 12 minutes of Primera F this season, so forgive us for not quite having the name there. But headed home from close range, sent El Pozuelo into sort of like the rafters, didn't he? You saw the wheeling away of celebrations from the Torremolinos players, and basically consigns Marbella to another should have been maybe a win game. Desperate need for points down on the Costa del Sol for those teams. It's still inside the relegation zone. But as from a Torremolinos perspective, again, we took these sides that have come up from the division below. They're not in the relegation zone where a lot of people expect them to be. And it'll now be a matter of saying, right, well, how do we strengthen in the new year to keep up this consistency and put more space between ourselves and these 5 bottom places? I do hope these.
Their problem is definitely, isn't it, goal scorer, isn't it? As you say, like they need somebody who they need a number 9, as so many teams do. Of course, they don't do badly and they share the goals around, but they need a focal point really. Somebody like Rios, who obviously they couldn't possibly afford. But I mean, it's interesting, as you said, we talked about the points that have been thrown away by Unionistas in the last minutes of games. Of course, Marbella should have picked up 4 points in the last week and ended up with just the one, didn't they? Really? So they and they're 4 points of safety. So they are still in the mire. And Mobby, I think, has improved things a bit, but they've still got quite a way to go. They're still way underperforming where they should be. Next game, big game. This one, Real Murcia 0, Sabadell 1, and I thought this game really lived up to expectations. I mean, there was only 1 goal in it, but for me, this was a cracking game between 2 very good teams.
Yeah, no, really, really good, like you say, and well attended as well. I thought, considering the part of the weekend that it was into as well. Sabadell, Ferran Costa must be so happy with his side and the way they're playing at the minute. They were right out the traps in this one. Really fast start from then. There was a really good save from Gazaniga from about 25 yards out in the first few minutes, but then it was an absolutely spectacular goal from Joel Priego, who's basically just sort of like smashed it into the top corner, didn't he? I don't know how it dropped from here. It kind of like hung in the air for a little while, and he's kind of got his foot over the top of it to volley it into the top corner, which was a really, really nice finish from a very, very tight angle. But then, the best thing about this is that how I can't remember who it was you were describing last week when you talked about these 2 boxers who basically just started to chuck punches at each other. we had a kind of a similar story here where basically Sabadell were going for a second goal. Real Murcia kept pressing for an equaliser, and it was just a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, it was. It was exactly like I think it was Lugo Tenerife. I said it about last week. The two sides, as you say, that were just like going for it. And of course, Real Murcia had to go for it because they were losing, but Sabadell didn't. There was no parking the bus from them, was there? You know, they have got an incredibly good defensive record this season. I think they've conceded something stupid like, is it like something like 7 goals or something in 16 games. So they're really good defensively. And of course, a big part of that is Diego Forley, who was excellent at Tarazona last year, and they had a brilliant defensive record. But, you know, it's not about just, you know, being really defensive and hanging on to what you got. They went for this. They kept looking for a second. I thought Gazzaniga had to make another couple of decent saves in this one. You know, so it's a really positive approach. Love to see that from a team that should be high on confidence. But this is a massive. Still, they go there as underdogs to me, Nick. I don't know what you think. You know, I mean, Rennes done a brilliant run with André Colunga, and you know, even though Sabadell only lost once all season, I felt like a draw was the very best they could expect from this game, and they again surpassed my expectations of them.
No, absolutely. I think a lot of that goes to sort of like the discipline that's drilled into Sabadell, and they do the good stuff well. Like you say, they're not going to score, you know, as many goals as Tenerife, for example, but they can grind out results and grind out wins. And you know, there's no statement result really in this league apart from when you look at, you know, what those sleeping giants are. And Real Murcia, especially recently under Colunga, you know, looked like they'd awakened and they were about to start storming the league again. But to go to the Nueva Condomina and get a result like this, you know, a real back to the walls job, especially in that final 20 minutes, really, really impressive from Sabadell. Be interesting to see how they again move on as we get past the final game of 2025 this weekend and what they do in the new year. But again, same as we've said from many times, striker is needed, I think, just to get them a few more goals, and they'll definitely be certainly be up there come the end of the season. My next game, Liam, was Nasi Tarragona 2, Cartagena 0. You know, we've spoken about obviously the change of manager with San Pedro being relieved of duty. Cristobal Paralo has been brought in. He got Racing Ferrol promoted out of this league previously into Segunda, and things are really starting to click here. Again, we spoke about the victory for Sabadell at Real Murcia. I think giving Javier Reyes Cartagena side a bit of a bloody nose is a pretty good result as well, Liam.
Yeah, very much so. I think his first game in charge, he lost it. Interesting, we just mentioned Real Murcia. I think he lost at the Nueva Condomina 3-2, if I remember rightly, that first game when Paralo had only been in charge for 3 or 4 days, I think, you know, and since then, they haven't lost. I think they've got 3 wins and 2 draws since then. And yeah, Cartagena, we know, I think we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Cartagena almost never scored on the road or didn't score for about the first 5 or 6 weeks, did they? And they didn't even look like scoring this one. They were dreadful going forward. They just didn't create anything at all. But they were in the playoff places going to this one, you know, so they are a decent side overall. We know that they have aspirations to be at least a playoff side, and they're living up to that at the moment. Nasic have now kicked them out of the playoffs and taken their place. So, yeah, I thought it was a really, really good performance over, and 2 beautiful goals as well. I don't know what you thought.
Yes, exactly. The Marcos Balsego, he must have been thinking this will be the greatest goal of the weekend that we can watch, and then very much towards the end of this game, they doubled their advantage, didn't they? With one of the most delightful goals you'll see in this league. I did point it out to anyone I could tell, really, Liam. I said, if you watch any goal this weekend, look at this one. It was Jaume Jardi, and he's just basically got himself into some space. He's one-on-one with the goalkeeper. He's a bit too far out to make a real sort of like shot at the angle. So what does he do, Liam? Naturally, backheel, turning away from goal as well, and just puts it around the goalkeeper. It's a very classy finish for me, audacious to say the least.
Very much so, and just a naturally skillful thing to do, isn't it? Really, you know, you obviously just didn't think about it. It's 1-0 in the 90th minute. He should be doing that, really. He should be wrapping his left foot around it, shouldn't he? But as you say, he was forced a bit wide, and then he just thought, right, I'll try this instead. Now, it's an interesting one, Jaume Jardi, because he started this one on the bench. I can only assume he's got an injury or something, because he's got 7 goals in the previous 15 games. Let's not forget, he's not a striker either, Nick. He's a midfielder. So, you know, he's got a great record now. You know, 1 in 2 across 16 games is brilliant. And talking of goal record, Baselga came into the season averaging a goal every 3 games in his previous 3 Primera RFEF campaigns. He did really well at Alentejo, did really well at Calahorra 2 or 3 seasons ago. So, he has got a real pedigree scoring goals at this level, but he's had a really, really quiet start to this season. And yet this was a beautiful finish curled in the corner. As you say, one of the best goals of the weekend. And then his teammate outdid him later in the same game. But it's a beautiful finish and the kind of finish you wouldn't expect from somebody who, for me, ought to be quite low on confidence because he's not scoring at the moment. None of it. A really nice goal. And yeah, I think we talked a number of times about whether we think Nasti Tarragona got any real chance of being in the playoffs yet again, and we felt probably that they wouldn't. We felt the squad was quite a lot weaker, but you know what? He's getting a real tune out of this team, isn't he? Paralo, and totally deserves to win. Totally the better side, and onwards and upwards for them. They're really on the march.
Yes, absolutely. They really are, and it'd be interesting to see again. See how they do strengthen maybe and back him in January. We'll wait to find out. Let's do another roundup of the rest of this weekend's game, starting on Friday night, Liam, down in Seville. A surprise here, a remontada, but for Betis Deportivo, of all people, as they beat Alcorcon by 2-1, just the second win of the season for Javi Medina's sides. Alcorcon have got to wonder here, Liam, haven't they? How did they not win this one, or how have they lost this one? Quite a... I don't want to say embarrassing because that's very disrespectful, but surely Alcorcon thought here that they'd be going to the side that's bottom of the league that have shown not a lot of promise going forward and certainly haven't been great at scoring goals. They thought they probably would have this wrapped up, by the time they stepped off the train, didn't they?
Yeah, I thought they played pretty well for most of the game, Alcorcon. They were 1 up. They had 2 goals disallowed, although they were both correctly disallowed, so you can't say that they were unlucky not to be 2 up. But they looked much the better side for a lot of the game, and then it just all came apart late on. I think 79, 81 minutes, the 2 Betis Deportivo goals. The first one's unlucky. It's a ball drilled in from the right-hand side, and Sergio Nieto just flicks off the top of his head and goes in the corner, so that's unfortunate. And then Carlos Reina smashes in the winner. I mean, it's only, as you say, the second win of the season for Betis Deportivo. They're 8 points from safety still, even after this win, so they're still right in a real mess. But, this is a game that, again, ramps up the pressure, doesn't it, on the Alcorcon coach, who's not really very well thought of by an awful lot of the supporters.
No, very young as well. I only realised the other day. I never really quite clocked how young he was. Only 31. Which is obviously a great opportunity for Alcorcon to be promoting things like that. But you can see maybe why the pressure might get applied on here. So it'll be interesting to see. We're halfway through the week now. There's been no news out of them just yet, and there's not been too many whispers. So we'll just keep an eye on that one there. Up to Barcelona, Europa 2, Antequera 0 on Friday night. Another day, another home win from the boys at New Sardinia. 6 wins, 2 draws. They're having a great time at their home stadium this season, aren't they, Liam? It's a shame they might only have 2 games left.
Yeah, a great shame. And yeah, I mean, what a great story this is. I didn't realise until very recently that the 2 scorers in this game, the 2 Canos, are brothers. And one of them, of course, is the centre half, Alejandro. He's 37 years old now. He's played 347 games for Europa. What a great story that is. And I think this is his first goal in Primera RFEF, isn't it? A tremendous achievement from him. Obviously, Canos got a few more. I think he's got 10, hasn't he, this season? They are absolutely superb at home. As you say, basically 20 points out of 24 on their own patch. And that is the main reason, of course, why they're in second place in Grupo Dos, just 4 points behind Atletico Madrileño. And yeah, it's a shame. We did obviously hear a few weeks ago they might be trying to stay there until the end of the season, launch some sort of challenge, but it's all gone quiet there again. So as things stand, they will have to move out after January 26th, won't they? So there will, as you say, just be 2 more home games played at North Sardinia in Primera Federación.
Yes, get there if you can. I know I certainly will try to. On to Saturday's games. First up was Casareño 0, Zamora 2, Oscar Cano.
This is actually Friday night, Nick. I don't like to nitpick here.
Oh, it's Friday night. Beg my pardon. Sorry, it's usually 2 games.
Was it? I'm not sure. I think they had a few more games on Friday night because this is a holiday weekend, isn't it? So
no, you're right. Yeah, this was Friday night. Beg your pardon. Yeah, so Friday night under the lights in Casareño at the Principe Felipe. Not a great result for the home side here, Liam. Zamora 2 goals to the good here. As I've just mentioned, Oscar Cano's 6th game in charge in the dugout. He's lasted 1 longer than he did at Tenerife last season, so that's positive. And actually, he's getting quite a good drumbeat out of his team, really. He's I'm not saying he's exceeding expectations, but he's not doing too badly for them.
Yeah, I mean, they won 3 out of 4, haven't they? They started with, I think, a draw at home against Orense, which looked terrible at the time, but given how Orense have been over the last, 6 or 7 weeks, then it's perhaps not such a terrible result, really. I mean, they scored twice the first 25 minutes in this game. They looked absolutely comfortable. I know Castaneño are struggling this season, especially with goals. but they never ever looked like giving up this lead. And it was good to see Josh Farrell, I think, getting his first start under this not so new coach, and he played more central, interesting, different role. I tend to see him playing out wide, a much more central role. Set up the first goal, which was great, and really pleased for him, because I must admit, sometimes you get a new coach come in, don't you, and they see the squad and they look at a player and think they don't really fancy him, and he kind of like, you're not for me sort of thing. But presumably he is still for Canna when the need arises, and when he can see him playing in a slightly different role from what he's been used to doing, and he thought he adapted to it really well. And pleased to see him being involved, and hopefully that will continue. And Zamora just a point outside the top 5 now in Grupo Uno. And again, it's what we were saying before, wasn't it? That it's a very tight group, and you string a few results together, you win 3 out of 4 like they have, it's all of a sudden, from looking nervously over your shoulder, you're right on the fringes of the playoffs.
Yes, absolutely. Like I say, people are queuing up to crash that playoff party. So, plenty of clubs in the picture. One club that is definitely in the picture in Grupo Uno is Real Madrid Castilla. They beat Guadalajara by 3-1 on Saturday. It was all going so well for the visitors, Liam. 1-0 back to Salifo, scoring the goals once again. Obviously, perfect preparation for playing Barcelona in midweek. And then it all started to kind of unravel here. There was all the other time played at the end of the first half. The ref decided to let the home side take a corner anyway. Funny how they don't mention when things go their way, do they, Liam? And then poor old Tono Calvo diverted a speculative shot into his own net to make it 1-1. And it really, really capped a miserable afternoon for him, didn't it?
Yeah, because he got sent off straight after the restart, didn't he? A second, I think it had to be. It was again accidental, but the guy's breaking away, and he does clip him from behind. I think it has to be a second yellow card, and that was that, really, wasn't it? We would expect Real Madrid Castilla to go on and win a game like that from 1-1 against 10 men at home. But yeah, as you rightly say, nothing. A lot of whinging when they don't get decisions that they want, and yet this corner should have been taken. I'm sorry, I never understand this. Your added time is up. I know it's a minimum of 4 minutes, but nothing happened in those 4 minutes. So why are we still playing on? Or let's just see if they can. It's just, no, let's not just see. Let's just blow the whistle. It's half time. But yeah, that was a big break for them that they chose not to mention afterwards. And yeah, they're a good side. Don't get me wrong. And it's not just about that. And they might well have gone on to win this game anyway. But yeah, that was a big helping hand. And yeah, nice to see Salifo back. They desperately need that, of course. I mean, David Amigo's got a few goals for them. But yeah, he's a class act, Salifo. And so yeah, good to see him back on the score sheet, and hopefully he'll now be injury free for a bit and start to get them up the table. A team that is really beginning to pick up, that was really struggling, and now they've got a new coach, seems to be working out a little bit better for them. But the other new coach in this game had a bit of a miserable afternoon, didn't he? Ponferradina 1, Alentejo 3.
Absolutely massive result of this for Alentejo, to be fair. To go to El Torrelín and get a result like this is really impressive at the best of times. But they did it with such an aplomb, Liam. Obviously, your friend of mine, Mingo, will get the plaudits with his 2 goals. But did you see the assist from David Ferrero for the first Mingo goal? It's like just a lovely little backheel lob pass, which completely dumbfounded the Ponfe defence and just opened it up for Mingo to score, rather spectacularly across the goalkeeper. And, I, again, kept sharing that with everyone I knew. Really, really beautiful stuff from
you do have that for there, and rightly so. He's a classic case, isn't it? Class is permanent. Ferrero is a fantastic player. Was brilliant down at Malaga, wasn't he? And he's a bit long in the tooth now, but yeah, absolute class. I totally agree with you. It's just as beautiful. The finish was very cool. And Mingo's interesting, isn't it? Because we have heard talk about Cadiz being interested in buying him, of course. And we'd have to think with someone like that, Alentejo, you'd have to think his buyout clause, his cláusula de rescisión is very low. I can't imagine it's more than 150,000 maybe. So, it's not a massive gamble for a Segunda side with any sort of money left of their, limited salarial. So that's worrying, of course, because, as you say, really confident, classy performance from Alentejo under the newish boss, Jorge Cuesta. They won games back to back now. They're a bit like Espes. I mean, Chemi Fernandez missed a penalty, missed the target completely for Ponferradina in the first half. If he'd scored then, would it have been a bit of a different game? But yeah, I mean, listen, Mehdi Nafti, I think knew he was going to have a tough job here. There's not a very united club at the moment, I don't think. I think the fans are very unhappy with the board there. And yeah, if you had any illusions about how big a job this was going to be, he isn't now, is he? He realises he's really up for a big fight now with them. I mean, Alentejo now 2 points from safety in Grupo Uno, and they're only a point behind Ponfe, of course, stay in the relegation zone. So yeah, two sides at the moment having very different fortunes.
No, absolutely. I think the pressure is very much on Mehdi Nafti already, even after these 3 or 4 games he's been involved in at the club. So, yeah, keep your eyes out for that space too. Down to Elda. Eldense 1, Tarazona 0. The only first half pen after a successful FES appeal was the right call. Was enough to give all 3 points to Claudio Barajan's side. Just 1 win in 9 and 4 goals on the road for Tarazona, which obviously we know that their home form is incredible, but their away form, maybe similar to Orange's club, just doesn't seem to match it. They drop into bottom 5, whilst Aldense are now just outside the top 5, Liam, which is, again, we see all these new managers come in. They're starting to get results, aren't they? And that's where they need to be. Just a shame for Tarazona with where they are.
Yeah, I mean, again, another very long journey home after this one for Tarazona. We've talked about it several times before. They're in, Grupo Dos, which is predominantly sides in the bottom half of the country. And Elda to Tarazona is not the longest journey they'll do, but it's still a long one. And yeah, they're a very small squad, and they struggle for goals, as you say, both home and away, to be honest, and especially away. So, yeah, tough one. Another side that doesn't like going on the road is Lugo. Osasuna Promesas 0, Lugo 0. They still haven't went away from home, Lugo. They've still only scored 3 goals on their travels. That's even worse than Tarazona. They even got away lucky this one, I would say. They were not good. And Osasuna Promesas had a goal disallowed in the second half. I think it was actually not first half, but really poor form. It's just inexplicable why they struggle so much on the road when they're so good at home at Lugo, and just a different side altogether. And also, Superbest's point for them takes them out of the bottom 5 in Grupo Uno. But yeah, Lugo really got to sort things out. Great game in Orense. I don't know what that pitch is like now. I mean, I don't know how it's surviving, to be honest. I think it's 2 teams playing on it, and it looks very tired at the moment. It's had a lot of games recently, isn't it? There's another one being played maybe this week. But yeah, even despite a really difficult surface, and which is getting ever worse, I think, Orense 2, Baracaldo 2 was a cracker, wasn't it?
Really, really was. And I think, Orense were very much out of the blocks on their own turf, and, just sort of like stormed to this 2-goal lead within the first 20 minutes. And, you'd think as well with where Orense have been recently, and the way they've been playing, you think they sort of look to box it off at Ukuto straight away. But just on the other side of half time, a golazo from Eric Perez, Liam. I don't know if you saw this one. He sort of like just picks it out, top right hand corner of the goal, with real power from a standing still position. A really, really, really nice finish, just past the hour mark there. And then, as has been the theme of this season, I would say these added time or extra time goals just keep coming in. The legend that is Xavi Marino lashed in an equaliser on the 92nd minute, and
I don't know why you say legend there. He's not a legend at Real Zaragoza. I can tell you that for nothing. Yeah, Xavi Marino. He's not a legend at many clubs he's played in the last 5 years. But to be fair, he's a Basque lad, isn't he? He's not a lad anymore. He's in his 30s. But yeah, I mean, let's be fair. I think he's probably found his level. I think Primera RFEF at this stage of his career is about where he should be at. And yeah, great finish. To be fair, yeah, he got in on goal and he finished it really well. But yeah, Perez's goal was beautiful, wasn't it? As you say, real quality from him. And yeah, Baracaldo haven't had a great run recently. And of course, they're still missing San Bartolome, which is a big loss for them. And 2-0 down. I think there's a lot of guts for them, as you say, to come back from 2-0 down against one of the form sides of the division. I thought it was a really good result. Bilbao Athletic 1, Celta Fortuna 2. A remontada from the 10-man visitors. We don't like to talk too much about Filial versus Filial, but fair play to them. 1-0 down. 2 goals in the second half, turned the games on its head, and ended up winning and staying just 5 points behind Tenerife. And to add an insult to injury for Bilbao Athletic, Asier Hierro sent off just for the final whistle, so it ended 10v10. But great result for Celta Fortuna, playing such a long time with 10 men and being behind and still winning the game. Talavera 2, Merida 1. Tell us a bit about Alejandro Sandroni's latest league success.
Yeah, two wins on the bounce now. He seems to be getting these results the wrong way around, especially after beating Malaga in that first game to set up that match against Real Madrid this week. He's now taken down Fran Beltran's Merida, who took the lead through, who else, Liam? Alvaro Garcia, 12th goal of the season for him. But then it was the turnaround that got them the win. I think it's a great opportunity for Talavera. I know I texted this to you in terms of saying like, oh, isn't that a good result? But you were thinking, well, actually, it kind of like concertinas up that relegation zone, doesn't it, to the chasing pack? But You know, you've got to sort of like give him the plaudits here. He's been brought in with a job to do. We know he's got pedigree from previous, and he seems to be getting a bit of a decent result out of his side at the moment.
Yeah, I actually got that wrong. I think I said it was his second league win. It isn't his second league win, of course. He's had one big win, in fact, within 24 hours of getting the job in the Copa del Rey, as you say, against Malaga. And then he lost, didn't he? Quite disappointing. I think they were poor against Cacereño the weekend before last. And then it's a real good bounce back here to beat Merida, who are really in form. I think they hadn't lost for 8 games before this game. So, yeah, and went 1-0 up. So you would think that that's a very, very big result for Talavera, of course. As you say, a very, very big game tomorrow night. But in terms of the context of what they're trying to achieve this season, that's a bonus. They need to stay in this division. And yeah, very encouraging signs early on for Sandrone with a team that, you know, has promised quite a lot of various times this season, but then hit a real bad run of form under Nogales. And that's why Sandrone's taken over and encouraging early signs. And the next one, well, Ibiza 0, Villarreal B 0. I can't believe this. I mean, I thought that Miguel Alvarez would be a good hire for Ibiza. I'm not saying it's a bad hire, but they scored 2 goals. No, they haven't scored 2 goals. They've scored in 2 games. They scored 3 against Algeciras, to be fair. But they haven't scored in 6 of the 8 games when he's been in charge. And that is just not good enough, is it?
No, they're treading water for me at the moment. And, you know, when you look at the ranks that Ibiza have got, and, you know, this is no respect to Villarreal B, who've obviously, you know, having a pretty solid season as well. But you look at the players they've got in that squad. They've got Bebes, they've got Devo, they've got Fran Castillo, they've got, you know, so many top talents who can score all over the pitch, as they did, you know, under Paco Gémez. It just seems to have really dried up for the moment. And they're going to be very, very concerned about this because, you know, there are still opportunities for Ibiza to get into the playoff picture, but at the minute they're kind of like just marooned in mid-table, and that isn't going to be anywhere they want.
I think they're literally just outside the bottom 5. I think, you know, I think they're only out of the bottom 5 with us on goal difference. So no, never mind being marooned. I mean, there isn't really mid-table to either of these divisions, if we're perfectly honest. Is there? But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, the playoff pitch at the moment is a way off, but not impossible if they went on a bit of a burn up, you know. But right now, much more of a concern is that I thought that Algeciras win, although Algeciras is not great on the road, I thought that was really going to be a turning point for them. They beat them 3-0, they were comfortable, and yeah, that was a really comprehensive 3-0 victory. And then, as you say, Villarreal B not having a bad season, but it's another game without a goal for them. And yeah, I just don't understand it either. I think it's probably the most baffling thing that I've seen in either division this season. Why Ibiza are struggling so badly. It just looked to me like a really well made up squad, and you know, let's not forget, of course, they brought in Sofian as well, didn't they? From I think he was on loan at Atletico San Eugenio last year, and I think he then went back to Filter and Ibiza signed him. So you know, they've got loads of players who ought to be scoring, and yet they just cannot find the net. Extraordinary. Another team that doesn't find the net very often. They've only scored, I think, 9 goals in 8 games at home. That's Teruel. But you know what? When you win 5 of those games and draw 2 of the others, it doesn't really matter, does it? Teruel won Algeciras in this one, and they're up to 4th in Grupo Dos. Another goal from somebody they weren't expecting, Abraham de Moral, centre half, I think he is. I think it's his first goal of the season. You know, yeah, some will say they're not thrilling to watch, but you know what? I don't think they could care less, could they? You know, they're very, very solid. Very difficult to break down once they get in front, and you know, making the very best of what is a squad that is probably the lowest budget in that division.
Yeah, and the only tweet at the weekends as well. That's also what I've noticed. They tend to go completely AWOL during the middle of the week, and we don't hear from them, and then they wrap up.
It says it's probably some guy who's just a volunteer who's working hard all week and just like helps out at the weekend. Really, I think it's a club that feels to me like, you know, it's a very small, compact group of people who are running this club, and that can help, can't it, to breed that sense of togetherness. And I mean, they don't score many. I get that. I get that they're not. It's not like watching, you know, Racing Santander and Segunda, and you know, even to a certain extent, watching the likes of Real Murcia and other teams that, you know, are very easy on the eye. But you know what? I wouldn't say that they're incredibly obdurate either. I wouldn't say that they're not particularly dull. I don't find to watch. They're just, you know, they're very, very efficient at taking their chances, you know, and they're also very good at defending the leads. But they don't sit with everyone behind the ball when they go in front. They're just very dogged and very determined and very keen to hang on to those 3 points. And more often than not, they manage to do it.
So what I'm hearing, Liam, is they are the pride of Aragon, no?
Well, I mean, this is the worrying thing, isn't it? Imagine if Teruel went up and Real Zaragoza went down. My God, can you imagine that? It's a tiny team from Southern Aragon and the giants of Central Aragon playing Primera RFEF. Yeah, it doesn't even bear thinking about, does it really? But yeah,
No.
you know what? It's not an impossibility by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think that they will, but I can see them making the playoffs. Certainly. And if they made the playoffs, this is not a team you want to play in the playoffs, is it? Because they would go into that with absolutely nothing to lose, massively surpassing expectations and no pressure and a very difficult side to beat. Anyway, Atlético San Kenya 1, Hércules 1, talking of difficult sides to beat under better company. Hércules have become a very difficult side to beat, haven't they?
Yeah, it's night and day as far as I'm concerned. We did see some decent results under Ruben Torres, but they weren't consistent enough. Better Company seems to be getting that consistency. 2 wins and 2 draws, against some pretty decent opposition. Again, traveling from Alicante to Sanlúcar isn't an easy trip. It's a very, very long trip. Fransol as well. He seems to be getting a bit of a drum out of both him and Slavi at the moment. That's a 3-3 for Fransol now, who put Heracles 1 goal to the good. But they eventually had to settle a point after Jeremy de Leon, who is such a good player for this level, by the way. I cannot tell you how impressed I am that Castellon have sent him out on loan to Hercules. He suffered a ridiculous red card, didn't he, Liam? This wasn't a red card, was it?
I mean, words fail me. I mean, they really do. I mean, I get that, he's barely, it's almost like a slide tackle as far as I'm not even sure it's hardly even a foul for me. I mean, how is that a red card? I mean, and it's another one of these ones where you think he gets the red card and not unsurprisingly, Hercules appeal it. And then he goes and has another look at it. And he sticks to his original decision like this. It's a yellow at the very worst. It's not a red card. I mean, it didn't really affect the game because it was the last 5 minutes, I think, wasn't it? It wasn't like they were hanging on after this happening after 50 minutes. But the point is that, it suggests that, had this happened in 50 minutes, he would have still been given as a red card. And it's just like laughable. I mean, I understand player safety, etc., but this is not that bad attack. He looked completely bemused by the decision. I don't blame him. We don't want to talk much about the last game, do we? Filial versus Filial. Atletico Madrid 1, Atletico 0, whatever, who cares? Atletico
the only thing I will say, did you see Belotti's goal?
Yeah, okay, fair. It's a great goal, but whatever.
But again, as well, when we look at how ridiculous,
you tweeted it, didn't you, as well?
I did tweet it. Yeah, I tweeted 2 Filiales scoring net rippers this weekend. But the one thing I take from that is Martin Belotti obviously promoted with Ceuta last season. Obviously, a very high class football player, high quality player. Why is he at a youth football team side? I'm pretty sure he's in his mid-20s now, or at least the higher end of the low end of his mid-20s. He's clearly got talent to play at a level above, being part of the successful Ceuta side. And you've seen his finish this weekend. He's clearly got him. He should. If he had any integrity, he'd get out of Atletico Madrileño, even if they do go up. And we really hope they don't. But a 1-0 win here certainly sends them their way. Games to watch this weekend, Liam, which is, I think, is it the penultimate? It's not the penultimate weekend. It is the penultimate weekend of 2025 this weekend, isn't it?
That's the last one, isn't it?
Is it the last one? I don't even know what the date is at the minute, to be fair.
We're heading for the Christmas break. This is the last one, yeah.
Much relieved Christmas break. Well, these are the 3 games I think you should watch this weekend in Grupo Uno. And once again, we've got ourselves a super domingo, Liam. To be fair, the fixtures weren't that great to pick from in Grupo Uno this week, so I've gone for 3 of the best I could find. Starting off at 12 o'clock on Sunday, it's Arenas Club against Talavera. Can Sandroni, let's see how the result against Real Madrid goes, but they go to Gobela. If it is, Arenas Club, last few games at Gobela as well. I think they've only got 1 more in January before they have to move. A good chance for them to put 3 points on the board against a fellow side down in the relegation zone. Not moving too far down the road, on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock, Baracaldo against Pontevedra. Again, 2 really good sides in form. And then on 4:15 on Sunday, over in Galicia, it's a really nice derby. I think only something like an hour between these 2 teams, if that, maybe even 45 minutes. Lugo against Orense at the Anxo Carro. Can Orense be the side that finally penetrate Fortress Anxo Carro this season, Liam? We will see. How about in Grupo Dos?
Those are 3 crackers, by the way. Yeah, that's a really, really good Sunday lineup, isn't it, really? And those of you who happen to be in the Basque Country this weekend, you can do those 2 very easily. Yeah, finish them. walk out of Getxo at 2:15, head across the river, and be in Baracaldo for 4 o'clock, you lucky buggers. Anyway, yeah, my 3 in Grupo Dos. First up, we've had one of these before, but I'm going to go for it again. Battle of the underachievers. And I think, unfortunately, Alcorcón were mentioned before in this. Alcorcón against Ibiza, Sunday at midday. Yeah, again, I'm not sure that Miguel Alvarez is really in danger of getting the sack. He's only got a contract at the end of the season, though. So if you did decide it wasn't working out, you could then give a new coach a couple of weeks to work on the squad over Christmas, couldn't you? Although I shouldn't think the players would like that much. But yeah, I do wonder whether he might go, you know what, I can't bother with this. I come back and, I might as well stay retired. I'll fall on my sword and give somebody else a chance. And similarly, as we said before, Alcorcón is really under pressure and needs to win this game. So yeah, that ought to be a decent game, but might be a little bit tense, I suspect, given both sides' current situations. What will not be tense and what should be a cracker is Sabadell against Atletico Madrileño. That's an absolute cracker, isn't it? We're talking about the top teams in the division. I can't remember Sabadell. I think Sabadell are third, actually, aren't they, behind Europa on goal difference? But yeah, 4 points behind Atletico Madrileño, so a chance to get to within a point of them. And then last of all, another cracker. That's in the middle, isn't it? I think that might have been Saturday at 9 o'clock, actually. Not done these in order. And then on Sunday, 8:30 p.m., Real Murcia against Europa. Should also be a really good game. Obviously, Europa don't travel that well. But, Real Murcia have had a big week. They've played Sabadell, and then they've played Betis. And so it'll be interesting to see how they cope with another tough opposition at the end of that week. But yeah, 6 really, really good games there. I'm looking forward to seeing as much of those 6 as I can.
Yes, absolutely. And obviously plenty of stuff to catch over on the Spanish Segunda show as well. The league with the highest sack rate in Europe, I believe, a whopping, is it 55% now, Liam, I believe, they were bragging about the other day. Nothing in comparison to what will be at the end of the season when we've got an 80% sack rate, Liam. That's my minimum bar I'm going for.
Exactly. The end of the season, there'll only be a few filiales hanging on to their coach. No, it's interesting, isn't it? You just wonder how many more will go. There probably will be a spell, won't there, when teams are looking like they're going to get relegated, and there will be more gone by the end of the season. I wonder what the percentage will be by the end of the season. It wouldn't surprise me if you say more than half of them have gone, and we're pretty well on our way to that already. But yeah, Segunda should be great this weekend. The last weekend is always very unpredictable. None of the top 4 won. And yeah, we move on. And your Malaga boys are doing very nice. I looked the other day at the table, and you're still only 5 points off the playoff, Nick. That's quite remarkable.
Yeah. Funness ball. Who would have thought that was going to come off there when Sergio Perez started? I certainly had my doubts, but he's really proving me wrong there at the moment. So, yes. And obviously plenty of stuff over in El Partido as well. We've got some really cool episodes coming out later this week. We did a brilliant episode which seems to have caught the imagination called Hombres de Barclays, our favourite Spanish Premier League 11. So definitely go give that a listen. There's some really cool players in there and some proper nostalgia in there as well, which is quite good. But like I say, enjoy the football at the weekend. Liam, enjoy your trip to Murcia. I'm very, very jealous. Whilst I'm stuck here in Munich, that you'll be getting to watch some football with Russ Pierce in the Nueva Condomina. So have a very, very fun time.
Thank you very much. I will look forward to speaking to you about it at some point of next week.
Absolutely. Well, thank you once again for joining me for this evening. Thank you guys at home as well. Muchos gracias for joining us once again. Go like and subscribe al Pozo. Tell your friends all about the third tier of Spanish football because it is an excellent league to follow if you want to look at plenty of teams playing football. But for now, we'll catch you later and say hasta luego. Goodbye.